Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We as presenting group would like to present our second case study entitled What Pushes Scientists to Lie? The Disturbing but Familiar Story of Haruko Obokata. Without further ado, let me start with the case summary. This case summarizes the story of Haruko Obokata, a Japanese researcher who claimed have created stem cells using new method. This shocked the world as many is very interested with the stem cell for possible use in repairing damaged organ. However, there was an issue arise and later Obokata was found guilty of scientific misconduct. She tried to replicate her experiment but failed to do so. This proved that Obokata's research is not reproducible and led to many questions and about the finding and truthfulness of her research. The article also mentioned the story of other researchers which had been said of not having enough proof in claiming their research findings, such as Huang Woso and Alexis Carrel. Another story mentioned is regarding the reproducibility crisis in scientific experiment. Amgen embraced researchers trying to recreate the findings from published paper, but they obtained less than 25% success rate. This proved that reproducibility of the study is one of the problems in scientific research. Next, we go to the case chronology of Haruko Obokata. In January 2014, Obokata published 2 journal papers in Nature. In the paper, she claimed to have discovered a simple way of turning ordinary body cell into embryonic stem cell, which done by expose the cell in acid environment for half an hour. Obokata was chosen as a potential candidate for Nobel Prize winner. Within a few days of publication, the disturbing allegation was emerged in Science blog and on Twitter. Some of her images could be manipulated and some text was copied from another paper. The problem were raised by anonymous science watchdog and the members of global stem cell research community. Furthermore, researchers around the world attempt to replicate the START method but reported negative findings. This raised doubts concerning the Obokata's research. As a result, RIKEN carried out an investigation and on April 1, Obokata was found guilty of scientific misconduct. Later, genetic analysis was done and indicate that the START cell does not match with the mouse that had been used. In July, both of her papers were retrieved from Nature. On the same month, Obokata was allowed to join RIKEN's effort to verify her original result. She tried to replicate her own study to back up her claimed discovery. Obokata's supervisor, Yoshiki Sasai, has been heavily criticized due to his action of inadequate supervision. He admitted to hospital in early August and later committed suicide, leaving behind 3 farewell notes. One of it being addressed to Obokata, which stated that be sure to reproduce START cell. In February 2015, The Guardian published an article which stated that Obokata was guilty of unbelievable carelessness, having manipulated image and plagiarized text. In 2016, Obokata showed her first media appearance after the scandal hit in an interview for Women's Magazine. There is another person involved in the START case, which is Charles Vacanti. From the beginning, Vacanti claimed that he able to create START cell. He believed that pluripotent stem cell exists in all mammalian tissue. However, he lacked conclusive proof and lacked credibility from his work, as he is not a stem cell researcher but an anesthesiologist and a tissue engineer. The main protagonist for this case is Haruko Obokata, who is a former stem cell biologist and research unit leader at RIKEN Center for Developmental Biology. After completing her master, Obokata went on to study stem cell and regenerative medicine. Then she furthered her research at Harvard Medical School under Charles Vacanti for 2 years. At RIKEN, Obokata continued her work on stem cell, collaborating with Wakayama and Vacanti. The problem statement for this case is what is the reality of research world concerning the action of some scientists such as Haruko Obokata in conducting the research and how to how to prevent such issue in the future, how stuck case affect the credibility of nature in publishing research paper, and what is the better approach to confront scientific misconduct either in secrecy or open to public. All scientists were very proud and honored by their own research study. However, it becomes a problem if the conducted research is not reproducible, such as in Abu Kata's case, and some scientists are willing to misconduct the research by fabricating this data and commit plagiarism. Due to that, our group stand is we disagree of being dishonest and misconduct the research study as it is unethical and can lead to more bad impact. A little bit on stub cell. Stub cell is an engineered stem cell created when hematopoietic stem cells from newborn mice were exposed to an acid environment. This triggered their conversion from multipotent somatic cell to pluripotent light stem cell. These cells are able to multiply abundantly and can grow into any type of cell in the body. It was discovered by Charles Vacanti and developed by Haruko Obokata. Despite the simplicity of stub method, no one else was able to replicate the work, and this caused doubts among researchers regarding the existence of stub cell.
The first main issue in this case study is the reality of research work. This case study mainly addresses on the question of what pushes scientists to lie. The term lie here refers to the act of research misconduct, which include data fabrication or falsification with the intention to deceive. And in Haruko's case, we assume that her actions can be due to the pressure in the workplace, the competition, the poor supervision, the funding, the awards, and the social expectation. The accuracy of self-reports on scientific misconduct might be biased due to the effect of social expectation. Scientists may have the tendency to protect the reputation of their field by downplaying their knowledge of such misconduct. Therefore, it is impossible and difficult to clearly delineate scientific misconduct. Besides, anyone who has ever falsified his or her research is probably reluctant to disclose it or to respond to the investigation despite all guarantees of confidentiality. Next, reproducibility is another long-standing cornerstone of scientific work. Systemic problems associated with the research funding and research culture were likely to contribute to this crisis. Competition for scarce resources can cause scientists to take shortcuts, introduce biases, and in extreme cases, tamper with or manipulate their research data, thus resulting in the publication of studies that cannot be replicated. In response to this issue, a conference was held in October 2015 to discuss the causes, the outcomes, and potential solutions to this problem. During the conference, the impact factor became the concern of most participants. This impact factor is used as the indicator to measure the relative significance of the journal in the scientific field. However, this measurement is often misinterpreted by the scientific community as the proxy of the quality or significance of the individual papers published in that journal. Thus, the significance and quality of an innovative but poorly conducted study published in a high-impact journal may overshadow the rigorous but less flashy scientific works published in a low-impact journal. The second point is the rapid advance of technology. When the amount of data is beyond the capability of the lab or the institution, the researchers might be forced to analyze and interpret the result in a way that introduces bias or inaccuracy. Advanced technology and research field might be too new to have the established and the generally accepted standard for the production and data assessment. Besides, high performance tools could make these efforts more challenging. Online journal, online data have fundamentally changed the way how scientists receive and share information, thus requiring a review of how to ensure the reproducibility and transparency of the whole process. Therefore, what is the most appropriate course of action to resolve this issue? First is by changing the research culture. For example, by redesigning the research funding framework and develop appropriate measures to evaluate scientists and their work, improve training on good scientific practice, increase reproducibility and transparency through data sharing and publication of negative results. Next is by responding to the problem. For example, by developing common procedure or protocols to correct the scientific literature, or by improving the training and responses to research liability breaches. In this case, it can be assumed that the act of research misconduct by Harukos could be due to many reasons. The main reasons that could explain her actions were high social expectation and the competition for insufficient resources. In this case study, the behavior of the scientists implied the lack of integrity. However, this could be avoided if one integrated oneself with the element of truthfulness and amana. These two attributes are among the way of life practiced by the Prophet ﷺ. Besides, as a scientist, although it is important to be successful, but it is more important to be ethical. The principle of honesty in research may imply a general prohibition against falsification, fabrication of data, result, or other types of information pertaining to the scientific publication. Thus, it is clear that the action of the protagonist is unacceptable according to the Islamic ethics.
The next issue we want to discuss is ethics in publishing. In this presentation, we include the publisher involved in our case study, which are Nature and Guardian. Nature is a multidisciplinary international science journal which produces weekly publication. The first publication was in 1869 and based in London, England. In total, Nature already published 155 journals, including specialized journals, which you can see on the slide. The question that we have been pondering related to our case study, is Nature a credible publisher? In order to determine the credibility of Nature as a publishing journal, there are 4 criteria. First, index of journal. It is referred to whether a journal is published in a bibliographical database such as Scopus, PubMed Central, and Elsevier database. And yes, Nature are indexed in those listing journals. Second, publishing history. The first issue of Nature was published in November 1869, and making up 2020, Nature had been published for 151 years. Third, peer review. Only papers that achieve the editorial criteria are sent for formal review. Selection of peer review are varied, including expertise and reputation. And the last factor is impact factor, which defined as a measurement average citation of a 2-year period. In 2020, Nature already obtained 24.360 journal impact, which considered as high average of journal citation. Based on all of 4 criteria, it is undeniable that Nature is a credible publishing journal. Moving on to the next issue, which is Nature and ethics in publishing. In August 2015, Nature Journals became member of Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE. Hence, all journals are guided by COPE guideline. There are 10 items listed on COPE guideline regarding good publication practice. The misconduct that related to Haruko Obokata case is data analysis. The misconduct on data analysis involve fabrication and falsification of data. According to COPE guideline, the action should be taken on publication is All sources and methods used to obtain and analyze data should be fully disclosed. Next, methods of analysis must be explained in detail and referenced if they are not in common use. However, in Haruko's case, she failed to follow the guideline listed by COPE guideline. We further our discussion on ethical aspect of Haruko's article on Guardian. There are two authors that involve, which are John Roscoe and Karl Powell. John Roscoe is a clinical hematologist and pathologist, while Karl Powell is head of Biological Resources Imaging Laboratory. The author's connection is both authors had written on two articles on The Guardian, which first is published on 2015, What Pushes Scientists to Lie, which is our case study, and second article was published on September 2015 about Dr. Conman. Both authors were under Centenary Institute of Cancer Medicine and Cell Biology in Australia at one time. In our group opinion, the problematic parts of the article consist two aspects, which is gender bias and also character assassination. Gender bias is defined as a favoritism towards a gender of another. In this article, we can see the example from this statement, and because she was a young woman, they also needed to know how she decorated her laboratory. And second, character assassination. It is defined as a malicious and unjustified harming of a person's good reputation. We can see the example from this statement, which is, and just like that, Obokata had joined the ranks of some very distinguished biomedical fraudsters. Aside from her lack of integrity and humility as a scientific researcher, what did she do wrong to deserve this unnecessary comment?
Our two main issue is that what is the better approach to confront this scientific misconduct. In this case, we can see two different approaches that have been used by US and also Japan. So in US, they investigate the case in secrecy, but in Japan, they investigate the case and they open it into the public. So as the result, the approach that have been used by US, the problem just between the scientists and also the investigator committee, but the approach that have been used by Japan, it caused the suicide of Dr. Yoshiki and also physical and mental deterioration of that suffered by Obokata due to the constant pressure from the media. So the responding to the research misconduct in US and most other countries, they adhere to law that empower federal agencies to oversee the investigations. For example, Office of Research Integrity and also Office of Inspector General. So research misconduct is investigated by the respective research committee and legal authorities until the verdict is reached. Then the accused may be exposed to the public. This is one of the reasons why US investigations in research misconduct takes place under a veil of secrecy and does not expose about Charles vacancy as big as Haruko Obokata. But in Japan, to the guidelines of responding to misconduct in research by Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology, result of investigation shall not be made public when it is determined to the misconduct has not occurred. The result only can be made public when the case under investigation has leaked out or unintentional errors have been uncovered in the publication or the allegation was determined to be lodged out of the malice. The reason why it should be public is for an effort to minimize the social loss secondary to the misconduct and also to share how investigation developed and how the investigate committee reach their ruling as knowledge that can be used by others in future. So the advantage of exposing scientific misconduct investigation to the public is that public and also scientists are exposed to the existence of the misconduct, and it also can prevent the case to reoccur in the future researchers as it provides warning to other researchers for the consequence of the misconduct, and it also able to create the improvement in publishing research article system and also improve the system to a stricter monitoring. So as the disadvantage of exposing scientific misconduct
in investigation to public is that it can create pressure from the media on the accused person that cause physical and also mental deterioration. So it also promotes public shaming on the accused person, causing them to feel humiliated. And also, lastly, the burden of accusation may cause the suicide action, especially in Japanese culture trait, in which dishonor of being pointed as a cause of a serious moral damage is unbearable to them. So, to answering our question, whether insecrecy or public approach is more better, is that firstly the approach to this scientific misconduct in Japan should be done in secrecy until the verdict is reached to the accused person. And also, publicizing investigations before verdict reach brings more harm to person compared to exposing the public on the investigation developed. So our justification to our opinion is that in Japanese culture trait, personal dishonor is taken seriously in Japan because it brings unbearable emotions and also actions, including suicide. Because the life of a person may be spared if the investigations in the end prove that they are not guilty, and also to prevent the greater harm, because in this case the harm is the suicide. So as a conclusion, there were three main issues that have been mentioned, which are the rate of research work, the credibility of Nature as a publisher, and also what is the better approach to confront this scientific misconduct. Scientists will be proud and honored by their research, but that pride can push someone to commit misconduct. That is why our group stand is that we disagree about dishonesty and the misconduct in any research study, as it can lead to more bad impacts than good. So as a take-home message, as mentioned in Quran, O you who have believed, fear and be with those who are true, in Surah At-Tawbah verse 119. It means that we have to be honest in our daily action, because Allah is always watching us. So thank you.